welcome back to the Plunder Den. In this week's episode, we're going to be building some native fortifications. So I've been kind of putting this project off ever since Fire on the Frontier, that Blood and Plunder expansion. I kind of went ahead and remember we built all those Frontier Fort, and we built the blockhouse, and then I went on to build a longhouse and wigwam and some scatter terrain for a native village. But my ultimate plan was ultimately to build a Palisade Fort for my native forces, for the native village. So they would have put a Palisade Fort around that town. And it was kind of challenging, actually, to come up with this project, and maybe that's why I was putting it off, because there isn't, unfortunately, a lot of historical records of what they look like. I have a lot of artwork and people's renditions of what it could look like, but not exactly 100% this is what it's going to be. I'm not one to dig through history books and look for historical references on things. I kind of more of a visual thinker, and I like to just see things visually, and that's how I'm able to construct these projects. So in my research, I didn't find a whole lot, to be honest. I found that they had a Palisade Fort, and it looked more like a spiral. So a European one sometimes is kind of more of a square. Theirs is more of a round shaped, and it kind of it doesn't really have a gateway. It has an opening at one end of the spiral. They had a second level for archers and stuff like that on top of the levels there. In some of their reference pictures, they had these two wigwams at the front entranceway. And I'm assuming that they would have had people with muskets and stuff like that protecting the opening in these wigwams. So that's what we're going to be building today. This is going to be a kind of a part one. This is probably going to take a few videos to complete. I'm probably going to do another one maybe next week dedicated for the second level of the walls for the archers and kind of the staircase that goes up in there. And that'll be in the next episode. But this episode, we're going to focus on that entranceway. So let's take a look at the finished product here. I got two sections. So you kind of imagine it's a circular spiral, and then there's an opening where there's two wigwams on both sides, and they had one in the front, one in the back, and I'm assuming that, creates, like I said before, a kill box in the middle there where people come in the middle, and they can shoot them with their muskets. So this is one side of it, and I made it like this, but you can take the top off. I wanted to make the top removable. And, of course, the bottom is removable as well. And then, of course, it's playable in the center. Oh, I left a mini in there. All right, so that's kind of the first side. Now, I didn't put the gateway up here or the walkway up here for the archers because it's sitting on top of the wigwam. And, of course, there's a chimney there, and that wouldn't make sense for it to be there. So the wall kind of continues off, or actually this way, and the archers would be up there, right? So I'm going to build that in the next episode, just kind of explaining what this looks like. I know it's hard to show you in this little camera space what we're doing here, but I just wanted to show you the whole project here. So, and then we built this second one. So this is the other side, and you can see I got gun port openings on here that they would shoot through. And again, this is the same as the other one. The top comes off and it moves on there. So if I want to, I could use these two wigwams separately. And I wouldn't have to use the wall if I just want to use it like village pieces or something like that. So this is actually a very versatile piece. I could just use it as little village pieces, or I could just use the walls if I wanted to for something else. So I really wanted to make something that could be used for other things other than this. And that's kind of the theme of my channel, is building terrain that can be used for all sorts of projects. Of course, I built this for Blood and Plunder, Fire on the Frontier in mind. But also in the back of my mind, I was also thinking that maybe some of these things could be used for other projects. All right, so that's pretty much it. If you guys like what we're doing here in the Plunder Den, make sure you smash that like button and consider subscribing to the Plunder Den and get first-hand information when I start these kind of projects. All right, everyone, let's get down to the table and let's start painting and let's start crafting. Okay, so let's start off by looking at some of the materials we'll need. This is some dollar store foam board that I've pre-primed with some black craft paint. I have it kind of like a foot shape, really, so the wigwams will be on either opposite ends. And here's some of that hobby twine that I used to build it. There's some coffee stir sticks, some assorted wood. This is some willow fence that I got. It's made from somebody's garden. I got from the dollar store, which will be excellent for the walls. There's some balsa wood, got some insulation foam that I've texturized for the wigwam walls, and some dowels there. So let's get a closer look at this willow fence. And it's pre-cut, and essentially you would put it in your garden, but it has a nice look to it already, perfect for building walls. But the problem is it's a little bit too tall. So I'm measuring it out here, and I'm like, yeah, 4 inches is where the longhouse height is. So I want it to be a little bit taller than the longhouse. So I got my snipping tools here. And what did I end up doing was snipping the tops off. But then I had to push that metal, the binds on here, push them down. Essentially, so because they're kind of too far up, and I didn't want to take them off. I tried taking them off originally. I was going to use some twine. It was just too time consuming to put it all back together again. So I left it that with some metal on there, and I figured I'd just paint it. All right, so I glued those onto I'm going to call them the feet for the walls. And now I'm going to start creating the 2 wigwams. So they're kind of like a teardrop shape. They're not going to be a completely round one, more of an elongated one. And I kind of made a smaller piece for the top roof and a base, because you want to kind of get skinnier as it goes up, right? So this is kind of a rough shape of it. I know it seems like not much when you start with this hobby twine, but this is really great stuff. Actually, I do recommend if you're building wigwams, this is the right stuff to use. It even kind of looks like wood when you put it together. It looks great. So I'm just showing you the 2 different types. I'm kind of building up the walls on there. You can see I'm doing just cross pieces of that hobby wire. And then you can see I've completed the bottoms, and now I've moved on to the roof. So I just kind of made the roof a little bit larger than the base. So it should sit on top of it. I noticed when I went back through my intro video, it looks like I didn't have my roof sitting on correctly, but they do fit on there. You just want to make them a little bit larger than the bottom, so they just kind of sit on top. It's a little hard with this hobby wire to get them to lock into place. So now I'm using some skinny balsa wood, just kind of the really flat stuff, and I'm just going to kind of like frame out the doorway on here. So that's what I'm showing at. Those are the 2 roof pieces are completed. So then I move on to the insulation foam. And I had some pre-made that I had at the beginning of the video there. But this is kind of what you use. It's a little brush I got from Home Depot. It's in the paint department. I think people use it to clean off paint off your, windowsills and stuff like that. But it makes great wood grains. So then you have to cut these into little chunks, and this is quite a tedious process. I kind of went, because I had 2 wigwams going here, I could go back and forth between them. So I would glue one side and move to the other one and glue that side. Then it kind of went to the roof, and I kind of just went back and forth, back and forth. So once I put that first row around the bottom, then I moved up to the second row, and I kind of overlapped them. You can see I kind of have an overlap. If you look at a wigwam, they kind of just have them all overlapping each other. That's another reason why I wanted the roof to be a little bit, wider on the top, so it just kind of all overlaps. It looks like it should. So these are some extra pieces. When I decided to take that fence apart, I have some parts that came off. And I decided to use those as a sturdier frame on the inside of these wigwams. Because they're going to have that opening and no top, they're not as sturdy as the round ones I made. So then I decided I wanted to put some stones on the bottom. So I cut some big chunks of insulation foam. There's my coffee tin with my rocks in it. And really, I'm just going to put those all in that coffee tin. And I'm going to shake those. I did actually shake them for 3 minutes this time. They're a little bit bigger, so And actually afterwards, I even to add a little more texture, I went back with a tinfoil ball and even added some more texture to them. They came out real good. I was real happy with the texture on them. Now that other plate of those stones, those are just left over from other projects. And I'm just showing you I'm going to stone out around the bottom of the fence line and around the wigwam. Kind of made of a defensive wall. It's not really a wall, it's just somebody can't run up to the front of the wigwam because they have to go through the kind of like stones. So this is kind of, I don't know if that's historically correct, but I certainly just added it on there. It made sense to me that it would be harder to get up in front of the wigwam if you're going to walk through the rocks. So I went ahead and started gluing them all around the base of where the wigwam's going to sit. Now those yellow pieces, I actually use it on the African plains. It's just parts of actually a broom that I got at the dollar store. If you look at a broom on the end, it's really frayed. So I cut those ends off and I'm going to use them for like tall grass in the stones there. All right, so I'm pretty well done. All the wigwam walls, and what I'm trying to do here is measure out where the gun slots are going to be. So kind of unlike the other wigwam I built, which is more of a home, this one's more of a fortification, so it has some holes in the walls. So I just cut those out afterwards with my hobby knife there, but I use my minis to make sure that they can fit through the hole there. So there's my fabric creations that I use to make all my sails. It's just cheap fabric from Walmart. You can get this pre-cut stuff. And it takes really well for the craft paint. So that's why I like using this stuff. It's pretty thin, so once you put the craft paint on, it just bleeds right through that material and it sticks to whatever you want to stick it to. So you got to paint it black first, the base. So here's the black paint I'm showing you. And then while you're painting it, put that material on top. It'll stick to the paint below, and then the paint that you put on top, it'll actually stick in place. So I like to add a little bit of looks like animal skins or materials on top of the roof just to add more support. Like maybe there's holes in the roof and they're repairing it. All right, so this is after I've added the primer coat on everything. Everything's with black craft paint. That's folk art black craft paint here. And I covered even the fence line. Now, it might be controversial because the fence line looked pretty good already. But that kind of hobby stuff, it's not really hobby stuff. It's the gardening fencing. It actually kind of has brittle on the outside. So once you add that black paint to it, it actually seals it in. So I'm just showing you the two big brushes I'm going to use. Moving into the real brown is the first color. And it's like all the other my projects in the same undertones. So we're going to do the real brown first. I'm just showing you how I'm going to apply that paint with the big brush. Now the really big brush I'm planning on using for the walls and the larger pieces there. And the mid-size one I'm going to use for these wigwams and the roofs of them. So that's just what I'm showing you here. So I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I'm just showing you a brief, just a brief view of how I'm going to do it. All right, so this is after all the real brown has been put on. Just kind of take a look at everything. And really, it's just, I kind of covered everything. It's not really, I didn't put more in any given spot. Just kind of an even consistency. So then the bark browns next. These are all folk art paints again. And like I said, I've covered this before in several videos, but I'm just gonna show you real quick the technique. So I'm just making passes, kind of tapping things on here, just trying to get the raised areas lightened with this bark brown, which is a much lighter brown than the real brown. So I decided to make it a little lighter in the middle of that fence line, just to. It'll make more sense as we go along because I make the bottom lighter and make it more brown in the center and darker, just to kind of give it a more weathered fence look. Okay, so now we're done the bark brown, just kind of giving you a good look at everything. You can see it has a bit of a lighter tone on everything. Highlighted a few of the raised areas. You can see at the very top, I actually started doing that new canoe that Firelock Games released as well. I figured I might as well, using all the undertones, I might as well do that too as well. So now I'm going to move into the Pablo, and we're going to really brighten things up. But again, don't put too much on, just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. You don't have to put a lot of this on. I've maybe even put a little bit too much already on there, but take more paint out of the brush. And I really lightened the center with this Pablo on these timbers on the outer wall here. So I'm just showing you all the different pieces, how I plan on applying the paint. But again, you've seen me do this technique in several videos. If you want a more in-depth view, watch the painting building tutorial. I go into depth on how I apply the paint. All right, so this is after I've added all that Pablo. You can see I've lightened the middle of that wall. And now we're going to move to some smaller brushes, and we're going to use the camel. So we're definitely going to hit the stones now with the camel. That's my first color that I put in for my stonework. I got my Army Painter dry brush there. And I hit some of the tops with that. Then I kind of moved to one of the smaller square brushes. It's a little harder to use this when you're doing precision work on things, but just want to tap in a little bit of the color in there. It's nice to have a little bit of the orange and a little bit of the camel. And you have multiple colors in there that we're doing. And I'm just showing up here, I'm doing the top of the timbers as well. With that, just to lighten it up where the wood is cut, right? And then I'm just showing you that I'm also going to do those binds. So we did paint them when we painted the whole wall, but now I want to kind of make them look like rope of sort. So I'm going to use that camel to highlight those. All right, so you can see they're highlighted now. We've done pretty well all the stone. I've kind of highlighted that dead tree that's on the ground there. Now we're going to move to desert yellow, skeleton bone, mummy robe, and necrotic flesh. These are the 4 colors I always use for my stones. You can watch the stone painting tutorial if you're interested on how that is used. But we're not going to cover that in this video. I'm just going to tell you those are the colors I'm using. And this is after I've completed that. So you can see I got multiple different colors in there. And that's the color combination I like. It comes out really well, the stonework. But I like to add Skeleton Horde contrast paint, Agrax Earth Shader on these stones as well. So we're going to hit all the bottoms of these 2 pieces here. And we're going to kind of just stop at the Skeleton Horde for a second. I'm going to show you a bit of the technique I use there. It's been a while on some of the videos since I've shown you what I do. I kind of just added in where the rocks in between them. So I figured they'd be dirtier in between, not so much on the top. Usually that's the place that gets hit with the most amount of rain, and usually those parts of the stone are the cleanest. So I kind of just go in between the 2. I just figured it would be important to show this step, mainly because I haven't shown it in a while. I did use the same technique on the seawall to do the stones. Usually most of my stonework is on the side of a building, but these are piles of rocks. So this is pretty much how I add that in there. And now the Agrax Air Shader, I kind of do the same technique. I just go back and even darken even more, but I went around all the bases of everything else in there too as well. So I'm just kind of showing you what I did around where the fire pit is and stuff. I just added a lot of Earth Shader in there. All right, so the Necromancer Cloak, Ash Gray, and the Speed Paint Hardened Leather. So this is my aged wood formula. So we already got the browns nicely put in there. And we get those highlighted sections that we've added. But now we're going to add these other colors. So what I'm showing you there is I plan on adding those grays to all these, including the wigwams. Definitely, like I would call them shingles or the wall pieces. I use the grays in there. And really I just use a small flat brush that I paint my ships with. You can see I added the light grays to the bottom and the dark grays. Just kind of dirties the bottom up. And I added dark gray to the top of the fence line too. And then you can see all the grays that I've added already on here. Now I didn't show it in this video, but these skins that are on the top, I would say, I just added some bland colors I had. I had army green and a bunch of different colors that I added to the top there. Mostly the stone colors that I paint the stones with. And then I'm going to add that commando green to add a little bit of, plant life to the bottom of these bases. And then that black I'm going to use around the entranceway or the opening where the chimney is. And of course, Agrax Earth Shader on everything to darken it all up. All right, so all the painting is done. Now I'm moving into just adding the final details. So I just got some gravel here that I plan on putting in that fire pit. And I just use white tacky glue, by the way, to put all this in here. I got some brown battleground that I usually use for my and the steppe grass I usually put around the bottom where the wigwam will sit on. That's kind of like the inside. I use those two particular items. And then I got for some field grass and some grass green that I put around the outside. Here's some moss that I got from Walmart. And I got one tree. I decided to put a little baby tree on there. It's just decided to put on there. And I got assorted tufts as well. All right, so let's go down to the battlefield and check out the finished product. But before we do, here's that new canoe that Fireluck Games released. Better for the North American natives than the canoa they had in the past. So this is the final product. There's the outer wall. You can see we got the longhouse and the wigwam in the background and some of the native scatter terrain that I created. I can't wait to get the walls done and show you my final vision for this entire project. All right, it looks like we got Benjamin Church coming up the beachhead here to invade this village. Let's get around the other side here. Trying to get around this large table here to the other side here. It's a little tricky to show you. I wanted to show the other side of the outer wall and then, of course, the inside. So it'd be nice to get the other sets of walls done and make a full circle. This is kind of like half the battlefield, really. But you can see all that, how this turned out. And we'll take a look at inside those wigwams here. So open up those caps. And then we got our little slits there for our native warriors to shoot out of. And you can see that they go at a crisscross on there. So anybody coming into the entranceway, they have a good shooting position on them. All right, that's a wrap on this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.